Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So for today's lesson, we're going to discuss about testing the difference between two means. So last meeting, we have discussed about performing hypothesis testing, but um, we only use one sample for that activity. Okay. Now, for today, what we're going to do is to perform hypothesis testing, but in this case, we're going to use two samples, okay? Now, very often there is a need to determine whether or not the mean of one population is the same as the mean of another population. For example, given the average IQ level of student A and the average IQ level of student B, we might want to decide whether there is really a difference, a significant difference that is between the average IQ level of two students. Now, in this case, so we have student A and student B. So, i-compare natin kung mayroon ba talagang significant difference between their average IQ level. Okay, so this time dalawa na yung ating samples. Similarly, we might be interested in finding on the basis of samples whether there is a difference between the average IQ level required to do job X and the average IQ level to do job Y. So in this case, we will be performing hypothesis testing given a two sample case. Now, there are three ways of formulating the statistical hypothesis in a two sample case. And these are, so the first one, our null hypothesis is mean population 1 is equal to mean population 2. And for our alternative hypothesis, we have the mean population 1 is not equal to mean population 2. And for the second case, we have the null case is, or the null hypothesis, I mean, is the mean population 1 is greater than or equal to mean population 2. And for the alternative hypothesis, the mean population 1 is less than the mean population 2. And for the third way, we have the null hypothesis is the mean population 1 is less than or equal to mean population 2. And for the alternative hypothesis, we have the mean population 1 is greater than the mean population 2. So, kailan ba natin ginagamit yung tatlong ways na yon? Kung alin ba dun sa tatlo? So, for the first way, it requires the use of two-tailed test since the alternative is a non-directional hypothesis. So, we have discussed this lesson last time. Okay, so kapag non-directional, we use two-tailed test. Okay, and for the second and third way, okay, these two require the application of one-tailed test since the alternative hypothesis in each case is directional. So in sa unang way natin, so ninegate natin yung ating null. So equal and then not equal. Dito may order relation na tayo. So we're looking whether the other population is greater than or less than the other one. Okay. Now, in performing the test, we will use the z statistic for two sample case. Anyway, we also use the t-test now. But for this lesson, we're going to use the z statistic. So we're going to focus on the given population wherein the number of cases is greater than 30. And for our formula, so we're going to use this one. So z is equal to mean population 1. So you can use x or the symbol that we had earlier minus mean population 2 is divided by the square root of this one is the variance or the square of the standard deviation over n sub 1. So this the first part refers to the data of the first population and added to the square of the standard deviation, or simply the variance, divided by the number of population 2. Okay, now let us have an example. So 15 pupils from school A have a mean IQ of 110 and a variance of 64, while 20 pupils from school B show a mean IQ of 114 and a variance of 78. Is there a significant difference between their mean IQs using a 0.01 level of significance? So tingnan natin muna yung mga given, no? So we have two schools being compared, School A and School B. So ang mean natin kay School A is 110 at the variance na 64, 'di ba? And there are 15 pupils. Okay? And for School B, so mayroon tayong 20 pupils, and the mean is 114 and the variance is 78. So if we add the population, we have 15 and 20, so more than 30 pa rin. So we're going to use the infinite level in our t-table. Now we're going to identify if there is a significant difference between their mean IQs. Okay. Now to perform the hypothesis testing, of course, the first step is to formulate the null and alternative hypothesis. Now since we are only looking for the significant difference, so wala diyang nakalagay na yung school A is better than school B, I mean. So therefore, we're going to use this one as our null hypothesis. So the mean population 1 is equal to mean population 2. And for our alternative hypothesis, so the mean population 1 is not equal to mean population 2. Okay, so from there, the next step is to specify the level of significance, or alpha. So alpha is equal to 0.01 level. So it is stated in our in the given problem. Now, since we are only looking for the significant difference, so that is a two-tailed test, right? Because the alternative hypothesis is non-directional. So the next step is to establish the critical region. So since we're using a two-tailed test at 0.01, so ito yon, di ba? Okay, so therefore, our critical value is positive or negative 2.576. Okay, so ang nilagay ko na lang dito is yung part na may infinite kasi most of our given here, since we're using the z-test, is greater than 30, so we use the infinite part. Okay, so kinwrap ko lang to dun sa table na binigay ko sa inyo last time. Alright, so ang pagsulat natin, pwedeng dito na kayo mag-start, diba? So the critical value is equivalent to 2.576 or negative 2.576, or actually you can just write 2.576, right? Now, the next step is, of course, to compute for the value of the statistical test performing the z-test. Okay? So, ito yung ating formula. So, ang mean natin sa una is 110. Diba? This is the mean of school A. At ang kanyang variance. So, variance na siya, kaya we just copy 64. And there are 15. Okay, so 110, 64, and 15. And then for the second population, the mean is 114 and the variance is 78, and there are 20 pupils. So 100 minus 110 minus 114 is negative 4. And then you can actually solve this na ng dire-diretso, di ba? So, but if you prefer this one, so pwede nyo siyang i-square it, and then you just have to round it off to up to 4 decimal place para mas accurate yung ating solution. And finally, our z value is negative 1.3997. So, of course, the next step is to make the statistical decision for hypothesis testing. So since the computed z value is negative 3.997 is less than the tabulated value or the critical value, which is 2.576. Therefore, so mas mababa, 'di ba? Ang ating tinitingnan is if we're going to draw the normal distribution, 'di ba? So yung negative 3,997 nandun siya sa part wherein we accept the null hypothesis, right? So therefore, we're going to accept the null hypothesis and reject the alternative hypothesis. And for our conclusion, there is no significant difference on the IQ level between the two groups of students. Okay, so that's it. Now let us have another example. A real estate agent compares the selling price of two townhouses in two major cities in NCR to see if there is a difference in price. Okay, now the results of the study are shown below. Is there enough evidence to reject the claim that the average price of a townhouse in Quezon City is higher than Makati City? Use alpha is equal to 0.05. So the level of significance that we're going to use in this example is 0.05. Now here is the data. So in Quezon City, the mean is 2,140,000 pesos for the standard deviation. So standard deviation ang given, okay? You have to be particular dun sa mga given kasi yung sa first example natin, variance na ang given, okay? But here we have 226,000 pesos for the standard deviation and the number of sample is 47. And for Makati City, the mean is 1,970,000 pesos and the standard deviation is 243,000 pesos with a sample of 45. Now, the first step, we have to formulate our null and alternative hypothesis. So let us go back with our problem. Okay, so ang sabi natin dito, is there enough evidence to reject the claim that the average price of townhouse in Quezon City is higher than Makati City? So yung sample natin is greater than the other one. Sample 1 greater than the another sample. So that means we're going to use a one-tailed test, right? Now, since greater than yon, ang ating null is this one. Diba? So the mean population 1 is less than or equal to mean population 2, and for our alternative hypothesis, mean population 1, this refers to Quezon City, is greater than the mean population 2, which is referred to the Makati City. Now for step 2, specify the level of significance. So alpha is equal to 0.05 level. So one-tailed test tayo because our alternative hypothesis is directional. And since we use 0.01, okay, sorry, 0.05, sorry, 0.05 for one-tailed. So ito yon, 'di ba? Therefore, our critical value is 1.645. Okay, 1.645. So, siya ay greater than, 'di ba? So, ibig sabihin siya ay right-tailed. Ang may shade natin ay yung tail, right tail part. Okay? And now, let us compute for the z value. So using the same formula, let us substitute the given value. So the mean of the first group or the Quezon City is 2,140,000 and the standard deviation is 226,000. So here we have to raise it by 2 kasi standard deviation yung given natin. And with the sample 47, and then the next we have 1,970,000, and the standard deviation is 243,000 pesos, and then raise it to for a sample of 45. So the difference do sa taas is 170,000, and this one is 48,978.8057, which give us a z value of 3.4709. So step 5, decision rule tayo. Now, since the computed z value is greater than sa critical z value, which is 1.645 at 0.05 level of significance, now we need to reject the null hypothesis. Diba? Kasi mas malaki. So, um, ang ating conclusion, since we reject the null hypothesis, we can conclude that there is enough evidence to support the claim that the means are not equal. Hence, there is a significant difference in the prices, and the average price of townhouse in Quezon City is higher than in Makati City. So that's our conclusion. Okay, so let us have one more example. So example number 3, the operations manager of sales company wants to see whether there is a significant difference in the ages of male and female customers. He selects 35 samples for each group. The data are shown below. At 0.05 level of significance, decide if there is enough evidence to reject the claim of no difference in the ages of two groups. So for the male group, the mean is 27.3 with a standard deviation of 2.4, and for the female group, the mean is 28 with a standard deviation of 3.1. So again, we're going to uh, formulate the null and the alternative hypothesis. So for our null hypothesis, since we are just looking for the significant difference, okay, so we have here the mean population 1 is equal to mean population 2, and for our alternative, mean population 1 is not equal to mean population 2. And our level of significance is 0.05, and we are going to use a two-tailed test since our alternative hypothesis is non-directional. And since we use 0.05, so dito tayo titingin. So we have the critical region, or the critical value is 1.960. So now let us compute for the z value. So our mean is 27.3 for the first group, and then 2.4 ang ating standard deviation, so we have to raise it into 2, and for the number of sample that we use is 35, and then for the female group we have 28, then 3.1 squared, and same number of population or sample we have 35. So 27.3 minus 28, that is negative 0.7 divided by, so the value of this one of our denominator is 0.6627, which gives us a z value of negative 1.0563. Now let us have the decision rule. So since our computed z value, which is negative 1.0563, is less than the critical z value, which is 1.960 at the level of significance, which is 0.05, therefore we accept the null hypothesis and reject the alternative hypothesis. Now, don't be confused nga pala with this value, kasi baka ang tingnan nyo yung negative, di ba? Sa ating z value, positive or negative tayo. So, actually, we use the absolute value of this one, okay? Kaya kung negative man yon, mas mababa pa rin ang 1.0563, okay? And for our conclusion, there is no evidence of significant difference between the average age of the male and female customers. So I hope may matutunan kayo sa lesson natin for today. So, for your finals quiz number two, so naka-upload na to sa ating LMS. I have given three problems there. So, you're going to perform hypothesis testing in order for you to draw the conclusion from the given problem. So 20 points each yon, and that will be submitted until next Sunday. Okay, so that will be all for today. Thank you so much, and don't forget to comment for your attendance. Okay, thank you.